I am of the pure mind of God. I am the resurrection and the life in my body, my finances, my relationships, and my world. I qualify everything in my world with perfection. I am perfection. I am this perfect day, and the life that lives in me is the light that cannot fail. I accept only God's perfection, His good, in my outer circumstances. I know in my heart that God is all in all. I am absolutely not concerned about what happens, because I know wonderful things are happening now. All right, welcome to the new workout center for me. This is where I do my new hill sprints. And as my 5-year-old daughter Fiona calls it, this is Milkshake Park. It goes by a different name. Actually, it has a very similar sounding name. It's actually Buttermilk Park, but we took the kids there, and my little one, she now has renamed it Milkshake Park. So this is much better sounding name. So not the same amount of water that I'm used to. I'm used to having Lake Michigan right there, but it's all the same to me. It's just enjoying the fastest path to my joy in this moment, wherever I find myself. It's all the same. So, as you may know, the new realm that the ministry is moving into is kind of a trifold ministry now. It always has been. So we started with prosperity, the 3-2-1 prosperity formula. That was really where I was in life, and going back to that place, bedridden and bankrupt with Lyme disease. What do you need more than anything? Well, I need to survive another day. I need God to provide for me. The bills were piling up, and I physically couldn't work, so I discovered how to, tap into the grace of God, the obedience of tithing and sowing and faith and locking in miracles. We teach that stuff, and we're doing the Money Master course, and I'm showing like some advanced, hacks that you can use and in conjunction with all these spiritual laws. And it's great because I see people breaking out with laughter, that they're getting results, and they're like, this is crazy. Well, it should be. You got to be out of your mind. You literally got to be out of your mind to prosper according to God's will. Because your mind is human reasoning. Human reasoning is not it. The traditions of men. That's what makes up human reasoning. Now, some people are like, well, those traditions are what hold our fabric of society intact. Well, and how's that been working out for you for thousands of years of never-ending war with glimpses of peace in between, right? Do you know why there's never-ending war with glimpses of peace between? Because peace is the presence of the Christ mind. The fragrance of the Christ mind is peace. And the world does one thing: it tries to hide the truth. It tries to hide the Christ. That's what the world does. Okay? So, now that we're on the same page, we know that the building blocks for the world mind, the invisible prison, is the traditions of men. That's what holds this whole thing together. The routines that they teach you, these routines are not conducive to your joy and your happiness. They're conducive to keeping things at status quo, which is ignorance and defeat. And if you think that things are getting better, then just go watch the movie Idiocracy and recognize it was a documentary. It's really about the reptilian brain, which Dr. Clotaire Rapai says, one of the smartest people out there that understands the culture code. The reptilian brain always wins. So the reptilian brain is always scanning the room. Should I kill it and eat it? Should I mate with it? Should I sleep with it? See? Should I kill it? Should I eat it? Or should I sleep with it? That's it. It's all it's thinking constantly. And that movie was actually an exaggerated, dramatization of what the reptilian mind world would look like. But it's not far from that. And so the traditions of men are still going to hold intact the dysfunction of the mortal consciousness, the reasoning mind, even as it disintegrates into its most acute form of, well, idiocracy is a good word for it, don't you think? So everywhere you see people that do not, that it makes no logical reasoning sense, right? Why would you wear a thing over your face that doesn't prevent you at all? Well, it's because it's not supposed to make sense. They're idiots. You're in a world of idiots. Okay, so you can't change them. You can't change because they're asleep. They're asleep in a dream. So forget about it. Forget about them. What are you going to do? All right, so what are you going to do? Now I segued a bit because I want to lead off into that, into why we're going into relationships now, into the new part of the ministry. But we went into well-being in the ministry as well, because similarly, manifesting money, or I should say revealing supply is a better way of saying it, was one thing. But I didn't want to stop there. I trained like a pro athlete today. This is actually a much bigger hill than it looks. This is probably like 50 yards on a steady incline, and it's soaking wet here. But I will run this thing when I'm done warming up with you guys like 20 to 30 times. And, I was out running with some younger middle school kids the other day, Michelle's kids. And you should know probably by now who Michelle is if you've been watching my videos, but that's where the new ministry is going. And they're fast, I'm telling you. And so we ran these hills, and they were kind of surprised that they didn't beat me. But I will tell you, it was a workout for all of us. And when I had Lyme disease, allegedly, because there is no such thing as Lyme disease in God's kingdom, but when I fell asleep in that dream, if I would have tried one of those hill sprints at full speed, I would have went into what they called a somatization episode, where I went into nervous system shock, and then I'd spend the next 3 days recovering, which is what happened over 36 times, and I'd end up in the ER again and again and again. And that's no way to live your life. And you can't make it whole just by pouring a bunch of money on top of it. You can't just fan the fire with money and be like, well, there you go, you're whole now. It doesn't work that way. Supply is all inclusive. It means, get this, it means abundant and overflowing prosperity. And the proof of that is the heart to give. When you have given and you yearn to give more, your supply will be unfailing at that point, when it's truly what's in your heart. Okay? Now, the other thing is, well-being is established firmly forever as a universal construct that you live inside the mind of God in the substance of spirit, and therefore you can't fall from it, lest you stumble upon a rock and fall into a material dream. Well, we've been working on that, and we're just graduating our first class of spiritual healing practitioners. And I'm so happy with that group. I am so ecstatic. I loved being a part of that group. I loved watching everybody grow and practice and grow into this. And we watched demonstrations begin to happen. And there has been a lot of growth. And even for those who didn't think there was growth, they noticed that people around them were changing. Well, that's part of the growth. It's all one. There is nobody around you. It's all one consciousness. And sometimes when you do this work, this is the irony of it, you might do work on prosperity and someone close to you starts getting wealthy, and you're like, well, what is going on here? Well, you should celebrate it, because there are no persons, conditions, or qualities of good and evil in the world out there. It's all happening in your consciousness. So whenever you see a pocket of prosperity show up, you should celebrate it. It's happening in your consciousness. Now, if you become a hater and you hate on it, well, then you just shut down your own flow of prosperity. You just hate it on your own supply. Some of these things people don't get. But if they did, they'd understand that whenever you hold anyone or anything outside of divine love and you put them in contempt, you actually hold yourself in contempt and you shut off your supply. Okay? Anyone or anything. Doesn't matter. No exclusions. Now, the other thing is well-being is when you hold yourself in contempt, you get sick. You hold yourself in contempt. It means you don't accept the fullness of God's offering, that you are the child of God and you could not be sick because there was never such a thing created as a decrepit mortal capable of suffering, all of the whims and fashions of this world. Because this world wasn't created. That's it. There you go. And so when you get to that point and you realize, well, hey, not only have I never lived in flesh, because that's a sin. If I was born of flesh, then I'm cursed from the beginning. So not only did that never happen, but also none of the history that accordingly came from that ever happened. And also, I, as a little sense of me, an ego, never happened. A little ego never showed up. And now we get into relationships. And this little ego, it's the carnal mind itself. But one thing, Michelle was saying that really hammered it home to me is she calls it ego, and it really is, it's ego. And it comprises itself of all of your earthbound knowledge, and it's held together by the laws of the flesh. And you know what the laws of the flesh are? The traditions of men. So if you want to have a chance and a hope and a prayer of experiencing total, intimate fulfillment, and you've been defining it outside of yourself, looking through the lens of traditions of men, you can't get there from there. Man plans and God laughs. If you think God's plans are the same as the plans that everybody has set before you, then you're in the dream, and unfortunately, you will perish as a creature of ignorance. Because whenever you see persons, conditions, or qualities of good and evil in the world, and you need God, it is the proof that you are in the dream. And week after week, people show up like clockwork, believing they're pursuing God and actually reinforcing the dream. They're actually reinforcing the same enslavement that they've been trying to get away from by perpetuating the traditions of men. And that's how the cookie crumbles. So, with that said, I want you to check out the link below. And I want you to watch the overview that I made the other day. It's a long 30-minute rant, but really, hear me out. Because the propensity for you to do this is the propensity to which you are separating yourself from the intimacy that's available to you. And this intimacy will blow the socks off of you. It'll blow your mind. Your ego is what's preventing you from being vulnerable because it's judging. It's judging. Your propensity and your natural instinct to judge what you think you see, especially what's transpiring in my life. As I've been saying, Sabrina and I, with all due respect, we love and care for each other. We do. We communicate very well. It's the best our relationship's ever been. It's the best it's ever been. And yet, we are, what the world would say, divorcing. All right? Now, why are we doing that? Why are we not just sticking it out, and why are we not just realizing the allness of God and demonstrating that that's present no matter what? Well, we are. We are. But here's what I've discovered. You becoming who you are now is not the same person when you began. So if you expect to have everything look the same from where you began to where you are now, don't expect it, is what I'm telling you. Because if you do have it look the same, it means you have not grown. Your environment cannot sustain a new level of consciousness because your environment at this snapshot moment of your life experience is a reflection of your present moment awareness. And when you begin clarifying where you're going, as in I'm seeking the Father, and then you begin qualifying everything with perfection, divine order is going to get established in your life. And with divine order, it's just like cleaning a house. You might have a piece on the table that you think, well, I've always had this piece here for 20 years. It's a picture of Aunt Millie and it's not moving. And you leave and the cleaning person comes in and Aunt Millie is now over there in the corner. And you come sit down and you're like, oh, Aunt Millie's gone. This is blasphemy. Aunt Millie's been there for 2 decades. Well, it's the same story that I heard years and years ago when I was in a network marketing company, and it had to do with the Thanksgiving ham. All right, so this couple, they have a Thanksgiving ham, and the wife begins cutting the edges of the Thanksgiving ham off, and the husband's like, "What are you doing? You're wasting like a third of that. What are you doing to that thing?" And she's like, "Well, I don't know. That's how we've always done it." "Well, who told you how to do this?" "Well, my mom did." "Well, call her and find out why we're doing this." So she calls mom. And mom's like, "Oh, yes, of course we do that. We've always done it that way. That's how you do it. That's how you cut a ham. That's how it's done." "Why? Why do we do it, Mom? Why?" "Well, I don't know. Grandma always did it that way. We just did it." So they call Grandma. And Grandma's like, "Oh, geez, well, back in my day, it wouldn't fit. So we had to cut off the pieces and so it would fit on there so we could cook it, So we just, but you see, it doesn't fit the current model today, but people are still doing it. They're still running the traditions of men as if they are ignorant to everything that has evolved. And what I want to tell you is that doesn't work. It doesn't work. So, with that said, what I believe does work is purifying and cleansing everything and then letting God show up the way that God has already ordained for you to be. You discover who you are. And then when you find out that you are evolving into something that is better than you were, then expect things to change. Expect people to go into different areas. Some will leave, some will enter, some will be rearranged. The house is going to get put in order. Your house is going to get put in order, and God will establish you where God has ordained you to be. And when it looks different, the traditions of men will get all crazy and stir about and be like, "I just knew it. I just knew there was something going on. It's just not right." And yet these are the unhappy, miserable people that are still cutting the edges off of the ham, and they don't have a clue why they're doing it today. Because 50 years ago, people got married because they had to out of survival reasons, and it was always designed for you to give over your power to the state. And it was always about a business partnership, and it was always about you subjecting yourself to something that is an artificial construct of what the real is. The true marriage is the marriage of you in the spirit. And if you don't see that, then you will always fall into the dream and you will be judged accordingly. And lest you judge, then you shall stumble upon a rock continuously. So I've had some tremendous growth. And I am with somebody now, and Michelle and I have been seeing each other for quite some time. And the one thing that's been happening is there has been so much growth within me and reflection when we have communication about what's happening. And the same thing with her. We've been realizing so much about ourselves that is so valuable that we can share with others on how to get to a level that I call spiritual chemistry. And this spiritual chemistry, it's just like chemistry in the natural, okay? Although it's rooted in a foundation that doesn't crumble, okay? What it means is that God is doing the steps, okay? And it's impossible. And one thing I said to her yesterday was, I said, she said, "What do you think the likelihood of us ever meeting each other would have been?" And I said, "It was impossible." And I said, "That's why I know God's in it. It was impossible." And I tell the story in the video about some of the impossible things that happened. And I want you to watch it. I want you to look into this workshop. Okay, it's called the Lover's Retreat. Now, if you're single, I think you should be there. I think you should be there. I began this process in 2020 being single, and I wrote about the divine marriage in the book, Trust. And, it put Sabrina and I into the proper relationship, and we really found ourselves. And then once we found ourselves, we recognized that, you know what? It's interesting that we've always had separate homes since 12 years ago. You like your own space, I like my own space. And we're like, what is that? Well, what it is that when we got together in the beginning, everyone around us, because of the traditions of men, were saying, you need to get married. You guys are sleeping together, you got to get married. There's no way around it. You have to do this. It's what the church says. So we were like, yeah, let's get married. And, Sabrina tried to break up with me right then. She said, I don't want to date you. And I said, why? She's like, I just recognize you're going to go through so many things. And I don't know. I don't know if I want to do this. And she's very intuitive. She saw this coming. And by the grace of God, though, she pretty much saved my life through that process. And God turned it into good because we turned to God. Whenever you turn to God, God will do two things. God will first give you grace. So even if you've gone on your own will and your own volition and your own ambition, and you've tried to make something happen that isn't really what God hath ordained for you, because you're still not quite prepared in your heart yet. You're still living a little bit outside of God's will. Grace will allow you to make those adjustments. And then God will begin adjusting. And God will begin sending you clues and messages and helping you become who God truly made you to be. And if that means that things get put in their proper place, then be okay with it. Because the true marriage is you reflecting the spiritual qualities of God. So, if within the marriage between Sabrina and I, there was always this struggle to communicate in a way that brought about those spiritual fruits. And we discovered that we really can do that. We really are capable of being those people. But yet we found ourselves separate during that time. We started to put two and two together and say, well, I really do love you. You are a great person, and I'm so grateful we have kids together. But I don't want to be married to you. Not in the way that the world sees it. I don't want that. We both agreed that, no, we don't want that. Serena said, I don't want to live with you. I want my own space. I want to be me. I want to do what I do. And I said, well, me too. I want to do that too. So here's the conundrum. Well, we love our kids. We love the life we've built. We love the ministry. We love the people in the ministry. What do we do with that? What do we do with that? Well, tell them the truth. Be real. You can't live under a lie and prosper. You have to be authentic. So this is authentically me telling you that I'm not the same person that I was 3 years ago. I'm sorry, but putting in hours a day, turning to Christ and giving up my will has really stripped off tons and tons of things away from me. And it revealed things to me that show me who I really am. And that changed everything. And it did the same for Sabrina, and it will do the same for you. And what I've really discovered is that when I became super vulnerable, I really had to become very vulnerable for, Michelle to get through and really just bond with me. Because I was so comfortable. Just me and God. I don't need anybody else. Don't need anybody. Why would I need anybody? I got God. And yes, that's true. Grace alone gives me everything. I don't have a need. I have God. But just like Wayne Dyer said, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. You see, it doesn't mean I'm stopping all activities in what you call the natural. I'm in the world, but not of it. But yet, I am here to be a light in this darkness. And one of the most powerful lights that can be shown to others is true relating from what I call spiritual chemistry. Now, I believe in my heart of hearts that God is going to show me how to reverse engineer all of this. And we've been talking about it, just like I do with all my workshops. God says, do this, and I do it. And I don't even have a clue how I'm going to do it. I just go on faith. God says, do it, and I do it. I jumped into the healing practitioner, just do it. I'll show you how to do it, just jump. Ready, fire, aim. That's how we do this game. You know, the Money Master, I said, well, I've been doing that for a long time, but what do you mean, Money Master? What are we going to do here? God said, just do it. Just do it. And now it's, okay, the Lover's Retreat. We're going to teach spiritual chemistry, how to find it, how to cultivate it, how to live from it, so that your true capacity to love and experience intimacy that I promise you will blow the hair off the back of your neck. I'm telling you. It's true. I've never experienced anything like it because it actually, it just doesn't make any logical human sense, okay? It doesn't make human sense. That somebody could actually want to be with me. Think about this. You know unconsciously, and I've heard this by Joel Goldsmith said this, the reason why we cringe at public displays of affection, okay, is because we know that mortality is not worthy of love. Mortality is outside of love. Corruption in the carnal mind doesn't deserve God's love, and it's cursed from the beginning. So a part of us remembers God, and we cringe at that. You know, when you see two people making out in a room, you think, ew, like, could you guys please just stop? Because we know intuitively that the carnal mind is not the source of love. And that's very carnal. Now, what I'm talking about, a spiritual union, this is much different. There is so much grace that abounds. And what I'm talking about is that you will show up on your ugliest day. And that ugliness will not turn into a fight. It will not turn into an argument. It will not turn into a cold silence for days or weeks, or resentment or bitterness. Those are all ego. Your ego will yield before what is truly happening. And what I mean by spiritual chemistry is that God's presence is right there. And God's presence is communicating through that host. And you are witnessing the death of your ego. And you're dying to the true nature of yourself. All relationships are a mirror of your present level of conscious awareness. As you begin changing, your relationships either evolve or they change. Once you find what I call spiritual chemistry, this is when God really just destroys all of your ego. And it happens in a way that you are incapable of acting from it. So here's an example. We went on this trip, Michelle and I went on this trip to Florida. I have never been on a car ride that many hours and not experienced agitation to some degree where I need to be away from the person that I'm traveling with. Never in my life. Like for me, in my previous history, if you would call it that, my pre-ascended state, there's something about personality that usually causes me to want to disengage. I've had enough of that personality, I'm out. That was my saying. I can't tolerate this mind anymore. I want to just go be alone with God. Can you relate to that? That's what I want. I just, hey, I'm done. It's been 6 hours. I'm going to go meditate for an hour. I got to be away from you. I don't want your personality anymore. Okay? I lived through that all the way up until I met Michelle. She said, let's go to Florida. I'm so excited. Let's go. And yeah, we'll drive there. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. This is going to be a test. I said, sure, let's do it. Let's go for it. I got this. I can handle this. This is good. I have never been on a trip that smooth in my life. When that propensity came up from within me, I started to feel a bit agitated. There was a moment, and it was a look, and I caught this look in her eyes, and that look said, "You do know I really love you, right? You do know that I've already accepted where you are and growing through these things." And in that moment when I saw that look, I saw the love of Christ, and I instantly started laughing, and we started joking, and we started dissolving. Like my ego began dissolving. We went through the whole trip and didn't have one moment where that ego got out of control. It tried to rear its head on day 2. On day 2, I had a moment. I started missing the kids. I started thinking like, I don't know, like, God, what's going on here? You know, like, am I doing the right thing? Am I really, what is my life? What am I supposed to do here, God? How come everything works so perfectly here and I failed in the past and everything? And we had a talk and I realized I never failed. I have succeeded. I grew out of who I was. And I came right out of that funk, and we just went right forward. It's like the pause button was pushed back to play. Back to ascending out of this ego. So I have ascended out of this ego, and I've noticed I've began engaging better with my children. I began taking on things that I never would do before. I'm beginning to chop wood and carry water and not just sit on top of the mountain and meditate as the mystic. My previous ministry was me going up to the mountain to meditate or going off to fast for 40 days from the world. I went and fasted from the world. That's what I did. And Sabrina gave me that opportunity. She was instrumental and irreplaceable in that capacity. And I grew out of it. And I came down and I said, okay, it's time to come off the mountain now and come out of the wilderness. I've done fasting. Now I've got to re-engage within the world, and I've got to bring my ministry in the world. And that means it's not this separated position anymore where we're just hiding in the backdrop. No, now it's, I chop wood, I carry water every day. I do all the things the normal people do. Call them normal, right? That means to live in a box, Carpenter Square. But anyway, but I do it in a way where this love radiates. This love is radiating. I don't know if you felt it, but here's a poll I put out. I put a poll out in the ministry and I said, over the past 9 months, do you like the content that I've come out with? Do you like it? And everybody said yes. They said it was the best. Now, I hope they're not trying to appease me, because I really do hope it is the best of what I got, because my aim in life is to be the best in the world at what I do. What do I do? Well, I consider myself a Gnostic, a mystic. Now I'm a functional one that lives in the world too. Okay, now I'm not just hiding and producing content for people to find secretly. Now it's like, hey, here it is, bam, it's out there, it's on the table. But if you like the content, well, what's happened over that course is that during that time, Sabrina and I had talks, and I told her about, I met Michelle, and she's, moved on from there since then too. And, we've still maintained, everything that we love and hold dear in our lives. And it's just become better for us. But Michelle has come into the picture, and I've grown. And with that growth, this new content has come. It's a new version of me. It's a different me. It's not the same me from 2018, 2017, 2016. This is new, and it's going to continue to grow, because my commitment is to grow spiritually. And that was the same commitment that Michelle had. And we found our way to each other impossibly. And we are committed to growing and evolving in this capacity, and we both are ministers, and we both love God, and we have that in common. So this is something that I want to share with everyone. and I want you to be there. And I would hope you'd be there. If you like the content and the fruit serves you, then that's the tree you're eating from. You're eating from the tree over the past 9 months of what has been going on. And that's where the content comes from. So if you are hung up on the traditions of men and you say, well, that's just not right. You should have stuck with Sabrina forever, and she should have stuck with you, and you guys should have worked it out, and God darn it, there's nothing that should come between you guys. Well, the irony is that you don't live in a singular linear reality. That's the carnal mind's observation. You live in a multiverse. And the truth is that when you change your frequency, your energy, and who you are, you're not in the same universe anymore. So in another universe, Sabrina and I are actually still married and together. In this universe, which simultaneously happens at the same time, this version of me comes out, and this version of me is in this growth dynamic with Michelle and growing spiritually to a higher degree of spiritual consciousness in a functional capacity, so that I'm not hiding up on top of the mountain or hiding in the wilderness, fasting from the world. And that's just not where God wanted me to be anymore. And so if you eat from that fruit and you like it and it's starting to produce yield, then go all in and eat of it with us. Just come with us. I want you to come, and I want you to do a couple things. We're going to do a couple things on this weekend. It's going to be July 29th, 30th, and 31st. And whether you're there or not, I'm still going to love the Lord. I'm still going to minister. And I know some people will just be like, they'll fall out. Some people are going to fall out because they don't like my content anyway. They haven't never liked it. And some people love the content, and there's new people constantly coming in, and they're going to come along with us on the new path. And I love everybody that crosses our path, and I'm so honored and grateful for every opportunity that I get to spend being in that presence with you. And I want you to experience what I see, what I feel, what I know to be true. I want you to feel this out. I want you to be there. So on that weekend, simultaneously, it's also July 28th is Sabrina's birthday. Now, I don't think Sabrina is going to attend this workshop. We've talked about it. And yet it's going to be her birthday. And so we're going to do a celebration ceremony during the workshop, and I want to celebrate everything that's happened in the ministry and the people that are part of the ministry. And I really want to have a nice social gathering, and we'll create that experience for everybody. And we're going to honor and celebrate Sabrina and everything that Sabrina is. Sabrina has been up until this point. She has been the person, if you will, that I've always gone to when I've had these moments where I feel even I need to fall back on some strength and some courage. Sabrina was that person for me. Well, God removed that person from me. God removed that. And it was very symbolic. And even my other person, who was a Christian Science practitioner, and she worked with me for quite a while and she helped me. I told you recently, she passed as well. Okay, she unexpectedly passed, like instantly on a day. Nobody expected it, and who knows? I mean, what it is I shifted universes, and I'm no longer in that universe, so the byproduct of that is the falling away of the illusion of people, conditions, and qualities of good or evil. These were people in conditions of support to me, and I considered them the good. And so what happened is, God said, you got more to go. I'm going to shift them out of your life, and I'm going to bring about something else. So guess where I've been? I've been leaning on the inner me now, the I within myself. I haven't leaned on those others. I've just turned to God. And I believe that is the reality of where we're going. And I really coincide that with when I began doing that. When I began doing that and really shifting most of the energy to within myself, the capital S, all of the dynamics in my world began changing because I started to put more faith and more trust in God alone, not people. And with that said, the things around me have changed. And I think that is how I discovered spiritual chemistry, is I really fell in love with the Christ and made the Christ all in all to me And what is reflective of that love began reflecting to me outside of me. And I want to show you how to get there, and I want to show you what I did and the rituals that I did every day and the meditations, and there's a lot of learning here. Now, that's just me. So who's been helping me facilitate all this is Michelle, and she comes along with this vast array of intuitive skills. And nobody has ever pierced through the veil of this old ego. Nobody. I tell you what, she said something to me, and I want to share this with you guys. And this ties into a lot of things that I haven't talked much about, but I've talked about some pretty esoteric, weird things, like the secret space program and all these weird anomalies that I've had, and it's true. Well, I didn't say nothing like that to Michelle. I didn't want to go off into woo land and start talking all this ridiculous stuff, because she's traditionally Catholic trained, very, very, very adept in that model. Okay, now she's also an intuitive. She's done, ayahuasca journeys. She's very, very, very gifted. She said something to me and it just blew me away. She's like, Matthew, she goes, I don't know if you realize this, but I've discovered already like eight different emanations of you. She's like, you're not multiple personality. She's like, but you wear so many hats. She's like, but I've identified all of them. And she goes, and I know which one I'm dealing with at every time. And I said, really? She's like, yeah. And she explained it to me. She's the only one that's ever seen me in that capacity. She's pegged it. She's nailed it. She's figured out from A to Z how this whole thing operates. And it's been, talk about the emperor has no clothes. Like, I was exposed, I'm not hiding. So you mean to tell me I'm not hiding? She's like, you're not hiding. I got you. And she's like, but that's the thing I really like about you. She goes, you're the most unique person I know. She goes, you really are something special. And she's like, I want to help you. I want to help you grow. And it was the yearning of my heart to grow. I really wanted to grow. And I've got my opportunity now. And so, with that said, the content that's going to be delivered is going to be stuff you've never experienced before. How do I know? Because I'm not the same person. Everything that I've done is all fresh. It's all coming out from a new space. And what's going to come? Never taught it before. Never done it before. How will I come up with the content? The same way I always do. I live my life and I turn to God moment by moment each day. And I listen. And when God gives me something, I do it. And then I say, okay, I did it. Then we unpack it. And I'm like, wow, there's a skill. There's a lesson. I've got something. I've got something for you. So what I want to give you, and what I want to give everyone in our ministry, is I want to give you this sense of belonging. I've never felt a part of this world. I've never felt like I ever fit in. I was a square peg in a round hole. I was a misfit, a mystic misfit. Maybe you feel the same way. Maybe at some level you felt like, well, the world would never really accept who I truly am. Well, I want to tell you that I've discovered how to be who I truly am, and the world actually changed. It really did. I live in my own pocket of this universe where the garden opens up all around me. So when I walk through these places, I'm a clandestine mystic, yes. But I can walk through a venue of chaos and ignorance and distortion in human mind. And I can sit down next to any of them. And that world will open up. The garden will open up. And heaven will pour out its blessing. Even in a deserted place where it seems like nothing but ego is here. And I want to tell you that I couldn't get there without spiritual chemistry. Nope, I had to always do it from a distance. I always had to just be like the walls of Jericho and walking around the walls of Jericho. And around those walls of Jericho, I had to do my prayer on the outside looking in until those walls came down. Walk the lake. pray for everything while walking the perimeter. My new model is I go right through the middle of it now. I actually just enter the environment and pour forth. And that's what happens. And then the lights begin shining, the day unfolds, the spiritual perfection becomes known. And everything I've ever wanted humanly, I sought first the kingdom and all these things came unto me. Everything I wanted humanly chases me now. It chases me. I call that spiritual chemistry. Why? Because I'm in love with the Spirit. And you know what a chemistry is? An alchemist. And alchemy happens in every moment because I'm in love with the Spirit. And that alchemy is the transformation of what you call formation itself. The form of the fashion body of this world transforms. And it changes. And it rearranges because divine order is established wherever there is what I call spiritual chemistry. And it happens inside of you. So whether you are single, that you think you're single, because you're always complete, or whether you are with somebody, I can't tell you exactly all of the mechanics of what we're going to teach, but I can tell you that I really believe the transformation you're looking for is going to happen. Just like I couldn't tell you months or weeks out what I was going to teach in any other workshop. Never knew. Never had a clue. I live in the moment. And it troubles a lot of egos around me because they don't understand how you could not think about the future. I don't care about the future. I'm here right now. God is operating, reflecting intelligence, and I'm just partaking of intelligence itself. So as I show up in the space where I'm needed, God says, do this. And because I'm always listening, I just do. And then all of a sudden a product is delivered and like, how did you do that? Well, I didn't do it. God did it. I was humble enough to listen. I didn't have my own will. I didn't go off saying, well, I know exactly what I'm doing. Here's me, and I'm always right wherever I go, and then I judge everything. Well, that's exactly what we're going to get rid of. We're going to get rid of every part of you that walks off into its own reasoning and begins judging everything from human perspectives and using the traditions of men to obfuscate God's perfect universe that is happening right here. It's you and you. That's all there is. So, with that said, I want you to watch the video. Check it out. I want you to be there. I want you to celebrate. You know, I want you to celebrate Sabrina. I love Sabrina. I will always love Sabrina. She's one of the best women that I've ever encountered on this whole earth. And she knows in her heart who she is, and I know in my heart who I am. And this was not an easy thing that we did. This was not easy. You know, we had planned for a long time on what we're doing now. And we set each other free because we wanted to be who we were designed to be. And we served our purpose together. We completed our mission together. And now we have a new mission together. And our mission involves loving and caring for each other in the capacity where she can have someone in her life that completes her, and I have someone that completes me in a way that we grow to who we actually are. We've outgrown who we were, is what I'm telling you. We've outgrown it. And when you get involved in growth, expect change. That's all I can say, expect it. And don't rebel against it, and don't retaliate. Because whatever seems to be a crisis in your life is the warfare surrounding the birth of a miracle. Good is always trying to push itself through, like cracking through the concrete so that it can grow. You see? And these concrete, hard experiences in your life are the traditions of men held together by the ego and the refusal of you to step into absolute vulnerability and allow for God to do all of the organizational management within your created experience. And if you allow that in relationships, which by the way is the secret to all of life, this is actually more important than the money and the well-being. Relating is everything. How you relate to God is how you relate to anyone. And vice versa. How you relate to anyone is how you relate to God. And you have to do a heart check and say, well, listen, am I really walking in victory in how I relate to everyone? And I can thoroughly tell you that previously, until this new chapter of me, which began about 9-10 months ago, no, I was not relating to people. I chose not to. I chose to hide in the silence, and I was just as fine sitting in a room all by myself for 3 days alone, as opposed to doing anything with a group of people. I never wanted to engage. I just wanted to be with God. And God said, that's fine. And I learned. But God has not left me there, and God wants me to evolve. And I think God wants you to evolve as well. And if you feel that that's you, then I want you to make the journey, and I want you to be there. We're going to be in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, July 29th, 30th, 31st, and we'll start on the 28th. So you can come in early, and we'll have a gala on the 28th. It'll be to be announced, but the venue will be in Milwaukee, and we'll announce the details in the next week. And this is going to be different. This is not going to be, sit around and listen to us talk the whole day, get your pen and paper. There's going to be some of that, but it's going to be very engaging. There's going to be a lot of engagement going on, All right, so pardon my appearance, but I was sweating profusely. So I finished my run, and I know the video shorted out, so before I finished what I was saying. So what I want to say is that the proof of the presence of love is change. The proof of the presence of love is change. And when you walk into an environment where love is present, change will happen. Now, that's always happened at our workshops. And I'm not discounting any of the love that was ever there. That's love. But love also is not complete in its transforming you until you are nothing but that love. Every last bit of personality, of resentment, bitterness, anger, frustration, all of the emanations of the lusts of the flesh